Welcome back to episode 17 of your CySA Plus Prepcast. In this episode, we begin our detailed exploration of Domain 1, which focuses entirely on security operations. As the largest and most operationally intense domain of the CySA Plus exam, security operations forms the foundation of what cybersecurity analysts do daily. It includes monitoring environments, interpreting threats, analyzing data, and responding swiftly to security events. This episode sets the tone for the deeper dives to follow and provides a broad understanding of what the analyst's world looks like inside a security operations center. To begin, let's define security operations as it applies to the role of the analyst. Security operations is the structured process of monitoring, detecting, analyzing, and responding to cybersecurity incidents and threats in real time. This function includes not only managing alerts but also proactively seeking anomalies, refining detection techniques, and optimizing the response process. The security operations team often forms the first line of defense in any organization, and their decisions can mean the difference between a minor incident and a full-scale breach. This is why the CySA Plus exam places so much weight on this domain. Most analysts who work in security operations are part of what is known as a Security Operations Center, or SOC. This is a centralized team responsible for the daily defense of the organization's infrastructure. Inside the SOC, analysts work in shifts to provide around-the-clock coverage. They rely on specialized tools such as SIM platforms, endpoint detection solutions, and threat intelligence feeds to analyze traffic, logs, and alerts. Their work is structured by procedures, documented through ticketing systems, and often coordinated with other departments such as compliance, networking, and legal. This high-pressure environment demands fast, accurate decisions and detailed documentation at every step. A fundamental area of security operations is log management. Analysts must understand how logs are generated, ingested, and normalized across different systems. The value of logs is directly tied to their accuracy and synchronization. Timestamps must be precise, log levels must be configured correctly, and logs must be collected from key sources, such as firewalls, intrusion detection systems, authentication servers, and endpoint protection platforms. Logs are more than just records. They are clues that help analysts detect and reconstruct malicious activity. On the CySA Plus exam, expect to analyze logs and recognize patterns that point toward real security events. Understanding the inner workings of operating systems is another core skill. Analysts must be comfortable interpreting Windows registry entries, analyzing system processes, examining running services, and identifying malicious code or unauthorized changes. On Linux systems, this includes working with logs in the var directory, checking cron jobs, and interpreting file permissions and ownership. Analysts must detect when a scheduled task is behaving unusually, when a system file has been replaced, or when resource usage indicates a possible attack. These indicators often appear subtly and require strong system knowledge to interpret correctly. Security operations also cover infrastructure technologies such as virtualization, containerization, and serverless computing. Analysts must understand how these technologies work, what their unique vulnerabilities are, and how to secure them effectively. For virtualization, this includes monitoring the hypervisor, segmenting virtual machines, and ensuring that isolation is enforced. For containers, analysts must be familiar with image validation, configuration file auditing, and container-to-host interaction. Serverless environments demand a different model entirely, where code executes in ephemeral instances and logging must be carefully planned. Each of these technologies brings flexibility, but also unique security challenges. Modern network architecture is deeply embedded in the security operations workflow. Analysts need to interpret how networks are structured, how traffic flows between zones, and how segmentation reduces risk. They should understand how to deploy and monitor zero-trust models, use secure access, service edge frameworks, and manage traffic through software-defined networking. These are not theoretical concepts on the CySA Plus exam. You may be asked to evaluate network configurations or recommend changes based on security best practices. Understanding the distinctions between on-premises, hybrid, and cloud-based environments is essential. Another major responsibility in the Analyst toolkit is managing identity and access. Analysts must understand and enforce authentication and authorization policies. This includes configuring and monitoring multi-factor authentication, managing single sign-on platforms, and monitoring privileged access through tools like PAM. Cloud access security brokers are used to extend these controls into cloud environments. The analyst is often the one reviewing logs for suspicious logging attempts, impossible travel events, or newly created administrative accounts. Recognizing these anomalies is key to catching intrusions early and stopping them before they escalate. Encryption plays a major role in both detection and prevention. Analysts need to know how encryption technologies work and how they impact monitoring. Public key infrastructure supports identity verification, while SSL and TLS encryption protect traffic. However, encrypted traffic can also hide threats. That is why SSL inspection is so important in many environments. Analysts must understand where and how to inspect encrypted traffic, how certificates are validated, and what signs suggest a man-in-the-middle attack or certificate misuse. These topics regularly appear on the CySA Plus exam and are tested through scenario-based questions. Protecting sensitive data is one of the ultimate goals of security operations. This includes personally identifiable information, credit card data, and intellectual property. Data loss prevention solutions are deployed to detect and block the unauthorized movement of sensitive data. These tools operate at the endpoint, at the network layer, and within applications. Analysts must understand how these systems classify data, how false positives are handled, and how policies are structured to comply with laws and regulations. Expect to see questions on identifying misconfigured DLP settings or understanding how DLP integrates with broader security architecture. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are more security courses on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Now that we've established the foundational structures and concepts behind security operations, it's time to shift our focus to how analysts actively detect and interpret malicious activity. This is the heart of the day-to-day work in a security operations center, and it is where the CySA Plus exam begins testing your applied decision-making. It's not enough to understand what a firewall does or what a log file contains. You must be able to interpret signals, prioritize alerts, and take logical action based on often incomplete information. This portion of the domain is practical and analytical, demanding close attention to detail and strong problem-solving skills. One of the most critical tasks for security analysts is detecting anomalies on the network. These indicators may be subtle, such as beaconing from a compromised host, or more overt, such as unauthorized devices appearing on the network. You must be able to identify irregular traffic flows, unexpected protocol usage, port scanning activity, and excessive bandwidth consumption that suggests data exfiltration. Analysts often use packet capture tools or flow data to validate alerts. The exam will test your ability to recognize what activity looks suspicious and which tools are best suited to investigate each type of alert. Host-based indicators of compromise are just as important. You should be able to identify abnormal usage of system resources, such as unexplained spikes in CPU or memory. You'll need to recognize unusual processes running in the background, new services being added, or unexpected scheduled tasks being created. Malware often leaves behind artifacts in log files, registry keys, or startup folders, and it's your responsibility as an analyst to find and document them. The CySA Plus exam may give you a scenario involving a slow-performing system and ask you to determine whether signs point toward a possible compromise. Application-level monitoring is another high-value focus area. You should be able to recognize when a web application or database is behaving abnormally. This could include the creation of unauthorized user accounts, unexpected outbound communication, or log entries that suggest input manipulation or injection attempts. You may need to determine whether activity is linked to insider misuse or a compromised service account. Expect to answer questions where you are presented with partial logs or application behavior summaries and must deduce whether a compromise has occurred and what action should be taken. The use of tools is fundamental to success in both the exam and in real-world analysis. You should be proficient with utilities like Wireshark, which helps you capture and analyze network packets, understand how to follow a TCP stream, identify protocol types, and spot indicators of data leakage or unauthorized communication. Endpoint detection and response tools are used to flag fileless malware, privilege escalation attempts, or lateral movement. DNS and IP intelligence platforms provide context for traffic behavior, helping you determine whether a destination is safe or linked to known malicious activity. Security information and event management platforms, commonly referred to as SIM tools, are used by analysts to aggregate, correlate, and prioritize log data from multiple sources. You should understand how a SIM organizes alerts, how to write basic queries, and how to interpret dashboards and timelines. Security orchestration, automation, and response platforms, or SOAR systems, are layered on top of SIMs to automate response action. These might include disabling an account, isolating a system, or enriching an alert with threat intelligence. You may be tested on which component of a SIM or SOAR environment handles a specific task, or which response workflow is most appropriate based on an alert severity. Static and dynamic file analysis are frequently used to investigate suspicious files. Static analysis involves inspecting code or binaries without executing them. This can include checking file hashes, strings, and metadata. Dynamic analysis occurs in sandbox environments where the file is executed in a controlled setting and its behavior is observed. Analysts should know how to use services like VirusTotal or tools like Joe Sandbox and Cuckoo Sandbox to evaluate files. You may see exam questions where a suspicious file needs to be classified based on its observed actions or fingerprint. User behavior analytics is another vital skill set in security operations. This involves profiling normal user activity and identifying deviations that suggest insider threats or compromised accounts. For example, if a user logs in from 2 different countries within a short time window, that is an impossible travel event and a strong indicator of credential theft. Other red flags include users accessing systems outside their normal work hours, downloading unusually large amounts of data, or attempting to access systems beyond their role's permissions. These kinds of behaviors should trigger alerts, and your role is to investigate, validate, and escalate them as needed. Automation and scripting skills are becoming more valuable every day. Analysts are expected to write simple scripts to automate recurring tasks, query logs, or process alerts. Languages such as Python, PowerShell, and shell scripting are most commonly used. You may use a Python script to check multiple IP addresses against a threat feed, or a PowerShell command to gather event logs from remote systems. The CySA Plus exam will not ask you to write scripts, but you may be tested on recognizing which scripting tool is best for a given task, or what a particular command's output indicates. Threat intelligence integration is a growing part of modern security operations. Analysts are expected to pull data from open source feeds, closed subscription feeds, and internal research. You should be able to evaluate threat intelligence based on its source, its relevance to your environment, and its timeliness. For instance, data about a threat actor targeting a completely different sector may be less relevant, while new indicators related to an active phishing campaign against your company should trigger immediate action. The exam may ask you to decide whether to escalate an alert based on shared threat intelligence or how to enrich an alert with new context. Finally, effective communication and documentation remain vital responsibilities for any analyst. It's not enough to detect or respond to a threat. You must be able to document what happened, what actions you took, and what recommendations you have moving forward. Documentation may include incident tickets, analyst notes, threat summaries, or stakeholder briefings. You must be able to communicate clearly and confidently with both technical and non-technical audiences. The CySA Plus exam might present you with documentation excerpts and ask whether they are complete, accurate, or missing essential information. To summarize, the second half of Domain 1 focuses on practical detection, analysis, tool usage, scripting, awareness, and communication. The analyst's job is not only technical. It also requires critical thinking, investigation, and coordination. Mastering these topics ensures that you are ready not only to pass the exam, but also to perform effectively in a fast-paced operational security environment. Continue practicing log interpretation, refining your incident response workflows, and sharpening your technical communication so that you are prepared for every question Domain 1 can offer. Thanks for listening. To learn more about cybersecurity, please visit baremetalcyber.com. There you will find best-selling books, videos, and even more free cybersecurity training courses. Please subscribe to the Prepcast and our various podcasts. And thanks for listening.